So the union just pretty much just told me to wait around for the letters to see if I got accepted or not into the apprenticeship. And so that's what I did. It was a waiting game, you know. They said it would take a few months. So during this time I have a kid on the way, and I'm trying to prepare for that. We're buying his crib, we're buying bassinet, diapers, just everything, you know, a kid needs, you know, a baby would need. And my girlfriend, she used to work at the hospital. She was a receptionist or something at the hospital. And shortly after she was pregnant, a few months after she found out she was pregnant, they ended up laying her off or something. You know, I don't know if it was due to her pregnancy or work or whatever, but she got laid off. So I was the only person bringing in the money. So I had to support us, you know, and we had a kid on the way. So I was just trying to do the best that I could. So, you know, I'm still working out at this gas compression plant, you know, buying stuff for the baby, getting ready for him to come. And we found out it was a boy, and just playing this waiting game to see what's going to happen with this union deal. And so during this time, like I told you, my Uncle Talleray, he's locked up in prison in Rawlins, Wyoming. And me and my mother went up to go see him, I think once or twice, you know, during this time. And while he was up there, he gained a lot of weight, you know, compared to when he first went in. And he was a lot more level-headed, you know, and understood everything that was pretty much going on with his life. And so we went and seen him while he was up there. And it's crazy because so my uncle was locked up in prison, and we found out that my Uncle Talleray ended up getting sick. I think he got meningitis or something like that. He also had hepatitis B or something, and he ended up getting real sick while he was in prison. He was only in there maybe 3 years or so. I don't know, something around there. He ended up getting real sick. Well, after we found out he got sick, we went up and seen him like a third time, and they had him like in a hospital, but there was all kinds of officers around and stuff like that. And even when he was in the hospital, when we went to go see him, they had him so drugged up, so he was like sleeping, and he couldn't even talk to us or nothing. We could just go in there and spend some time with him. And they still had him chained to the hospital bed. You know, they had him handcuffed to the hospital bed. And, you know, just to see that, you know, makes you think like, man, you know, it's like he's so sick, you know, he's so drugged up, you know, you could tell he's losing his life, and you still got him chained up to the hospital bed. But that's just protocol. That's how they gotta, that's how they have to treat the prisoners, I guess. And so shortly after that last visit, I think it was like 3 weeks or a month, he ended up, you know, getting real sick and ended up passing away. So my Uncle Talleray ends up dying while he's in prison. And, you know, it's really hard, you know, and there's nothing we could really do, you know. We just didn't want to see him go out like that. So, but I'll never forget, you know, one of the last times I seen him in prison, me and my mom went to go see him, and he was telling me, you know, your mom's been asking you for help or whatever, and I was complaining. I was like, yeah, I know, but she really needs to drop her gambling addiction. He's all, yeah, I know, but you know, when your mom says help, you just need to help her. And so I totally understood what he was telling me, you know, but at the time I didn't want to. I wanted to be hard on my mom because I wanted her to change or something. And so he ended up passing away. We went to his funeral. He had a big funeral and everything, and it's just like another devastating blow to our family, you know. My Uncle Ronnie, my grandfather, and now my Uncle Talleray. And so after the funeral, you know, I'm just still working at the gas compression plant, waiting to hear back on this union job. And this is right around probably April. I'm waiting to hear something back, you know, early April or so, maybe March. And we found out that my son was going to be born right around the end of May. And my birthday's on May 5th, so we thought that was pretty neat, you know. So finally a letter came back, like I think it was mid-April or so, and they said that they accepted me for the apprenticeship program. They told me all the ins and outs about going to school and everything like that. So I was pretty excited about that. I was ready to start something new in my life. And actually I found this out, you know, when I got accepted into the apprenticeship program, my Uncle Daniel was in there for a few months, like 2 or 3 months. And he ended up not doing the schoolwork or falling behind, and I don't know, he got kicked out or something. But, you know, it's like, well, I'm going to have to make the name for our family, I guess, you know, try to do whatever I can do. And so I got accepted into the program in about mid-April. And I started going with the flow and everything. And I finally started my first job, I think it was like right around May 12th. Well, my son was going to be born in like 2 or 3 weeks down the road, you know. So I started working for this contractor out at the refinery, Gregory Piping, and I even took a pay cut just to start working through the apprenticeship. They're only paying me $10.50 an hour. But, you know, I'm going to work, and I had a goal, was to get my journeymans, you know, work through it, get my journeymans. And so I went there, started working, and I was only there 2 weeks, and then I had to, you know, take some time off of work to, because my son was being born. Well, I thought I was ready for my son, you know, like I say, I bought everything he needed at the crib, bassinet, everything a baby would need. And I thought I was ready, but you're never really ready until you hold your kid in your hands for the first time ever. Because you could buy all the stuff, you could have all the money in the world, but as soon as you hold that baby for the first time, your world instantly changes, and mine instantly changed when I held my son for the first time. It was just like total shock. It was just like, wow, you know, I can't believe this is such a blessing to my life and everything like that. And so he was born and everything, and you know, we started taking care of him. We named him Brendan. And he's, you know, just a really beautiful boy. We're really blessed to have him in our lives. And so I start going back to work at the refinery. I took like probably 3 or 4 days off, and then I had to go back to work because, you know, I was a brand new apprentice, just starting on the job, and I didn't want to take off too much time. And so I think I lasted another week or so, and one day I was in the refinery, and I was driving a man lift, and it ended up running out of gas. And the boss seen me, it ran out of gas, and he come up and he's all, man, he says, you didn't put no gas in this thing? I says, I don't even know where the gas pumps around here. And he's just like, it's a damn refinery, you need to know, you know, there's gas all over the place. But yeah, I know it's a refinery, they make gasoline and stuff, but they have certain pumps in certain areas in the refinery that you're supposed to go fill it up at. And I was a brand new apprentice, I was just learning the ropes, you know. And he got all pissed off, and he says, well, we don't need you around here. And I was like, great, you know. So him and his wife, you know, put me in the van, or in their SUV, and they drive me to the gate. You know, I got laid off, pretty much. He was real pissed off, and he was kind of like a moody guy, you know. He would get angry at everybody and just throw fits or whatever. And it's just like, man, this kind of sucks, you know. So he ends up driving me to the gate, and on the way to the gate, he's all, yeah, even though you're laid off and everything, I heard they got a new project over in Colorado, in Fort Collins, Colorado. Just check with your union and find out about that. And so I was like, all right. So I went to the union hall and talked with them, and they says, yeah, we got a new project coming up in Fort Collins, you know, you'll go out on Monday. So I got laid off like on a Friday or something. So on Monday, me and another apprentice got together, and we started carpooling back and forth to Fort Collins to that job up there. And that was strictly a plumbing job. The job I just got laid off of was a pipe fitter job. So, you know, it's more industrial. Between plumbing and pipe fitting, they're almost the same thing. It's just pipe fitting's more on an industrial level, where there's a lot more welding, like heavy steel, stuff like that. Critical lines, where plumbing, you know, is more for residential and commercial and brazing and soldering copper and stuff like that. And So we start carpooling back and forth to this job up in Fort Collins, Colorado. Start working there, and it was actually nice. The thing they do with the apprentices is their pay scales goes by what 50% of whatever the journeyman makes. So the journeyman makes a certain amount. The first year apprentice starts out at half of that pay, and then they work their way up through the apprenticeship until finally, when they get close to becoming a journeyman, they're already right there at the journeyman pay scale, or very close to it. When they graduate, then they get the full pay. And so when we went over there, their journeyman scale was like $26.50 an hour. So we got raised up from like $10.50, because the journeyman scale in Cheyenne was 21. We got raised up to like $13.25 or something. So we're like, oh, this is cool. But we had to carpool because the job was like 50 miles away from Cheyenne, Wyoming. So we had to figure out ways to make it, you know. And so we start carpooling, start working up there. That job went pretty smooth, actually, you know. And I stayed working at that job for 9 months, you know, just going back and forth and everything like that. And it was a pretty good job. Well, during this time that we're working there, I think we're like 2 months in or something like that. And they start bringing other people in from our local union back in Wyoming to work on a job with us. So, you know, when we're up there, we're working with guys from the Colorado unions, you know, and that's different unions. Well, they start bringing in guys from our home local union to work with us, and we start meeting all these other guys from our union. And we met this old guy named Randy, and he was probably like mid-50s at the time, or early 50s. But when I first met him, I didn't really know him. I didn't think nothing like that. So we just shook his hand, met him and stuff like that. And I just thought he was just an old guy, you know, living a peaceful life or whatever. So we hooked up with him and I think another person. We started carpooling back and forth, you know, so we could all save money. We could all make it. So we're not all wasting all our money on gas. We'd take turns carpooling or whatever. Well, the guy that I was up there with, the first guy, his name was Floyd, and he was like a military guy or whatever, and he was like real strict, you know, just trying to play everything by the book or whatever. And so we're driving back and forth. We leave this one day from Fort Collins to jump in the truck and go back to Cheyenne. And we're in Randy's truck. He's the old man, and he's driving, and I'm up front and Floyd's in the back. Well, we're cruising down the street, you know, and I look over at Randy, and he pulls out a big old joint, you know, and he looks over at me and got a big old smile on his face. And I'm just looking at him, and I didn't say nothing. I just thought, oh, maybe it's just a rolled up cigarette. You know, this guy's pretty old. He's like an old timer. And he sparks it up. He just sparks it up right away and starts puffing on it. And sure enough, it was marijuana. It wasn't no cigarette. And Floyd could tell in the back, and Floyd's like, hey, is that a marijuana joint you're smoking up there? And Randy turned around and he's like, what the hell you think it is? And he blew it in Floyd's face. And I got a kick out of that because, like, man, Randy doesn't even care, you know. He's just like, first of all, when I first met him, I thought he's this harmless old man living a simple life. But man, he's wild, radical, and everything. And so, you know, we found out later on down, and I didn't smoke or nothing like that. I was playing everything straight by the book. You know, I made a decision to let that stuff out of my life, and Floyd wasn't into it, so it was just Randy. And we found out later on that Randy was quite the party animal, you know, so we just, you know, whatever, you know, that's who Randy is. So, and one day on work, I was working with Randy, and we just completed a mechanical floor down below us. We was doing a Center for Disease Control down there in Fort Collins, Colorado, and it is a multi-story building where they would do one floor was a mechanical floor where they would have all the piping and all the heavy equipment in. But then the next floor was like a lab floor, and then the next floor a mechanical floor, and just on and on and on. Well, whenever we complete like a mechanical floor or the previous floor, we would have to pressure test all that pipe. Well, they would have 4-inch copper, 3-inch copper, 2-inch copper, just all different sizes of pipe, and they would all tie them in towards each other. and put them underneath high pressure, air pressure. They usually call that pneumatic pressure. And they would go around with like a leak detector and see if all the solder joints and braze joints would hold. Well, I was up on a ladder and they had a stub out the floor. A stub out is like a piece of pipe that comes out the floor and it's got a copper cap on it and it's already been soldered on there. And I was working right above this cap on the ladder trying to hang up some hangers. And the whole floor down below us was all under pressure, like 250 psi. And they were telling Randy that they wanted him to tie into this stub and start continuing on the pipe to the next floor up above. And Randy asked him, he says, well, isn't that floor underneath pressure? You know, I thought that they were having it all pressurized. And the guy's all, oh, I don't know. And Randy and that boss, they kind of got in a miscommunication issue over it, and they didn't really know. And Randy, he's been around like 30 years or so he just got pissed off. He's like, well, whatever, I'll cut it in. And so Randy gets out a torch and he strikes it up. And he starts putting it on that copper, you know, and heating it up because he's wanting to take the cap off and continue on like they said. Well, as soon as he put that torch to that pipe, you know, I just instantly knew something was wrong. Like I need to get down, you know. And I don't know what told me that or the feeling that I got. I just knew that something wasn't right. So I got down off the ladder and I went around the corner and I was kind of hiding. And I was just watching Randy from the back and I was just like, this ain't right, you know, I wonder what's gonna happen. So he's putting that torch on there for about a good 2 minutes or so. Next thing you know, boom! That cap just flies off, hits the ceiling, tears down a whole bunch of metal studs and everything, and all that air just comes rushing out of the floor below and everybody's running up, what's going on, what's going on, what's going on? And I just thought, man, I was just up there on that ladder right above Randy. If I would have stayed up there and hung up that hanger, who knows what would have happened. I would have got hurt really bad. And so I was like, man, you know, it's a good thing I come down from there. And so, you know, Randy was always a wild guy and he didn't last very long on the job, you know. He would tell some pretty rotten jokes to people and just like always bucking the system, so they end up laying him off after a while. So right around 3 months goes by and my son's right around 3 years old. And this whole time that we lived in that townhouse, it was a 2-bedroom, you know, and my son was just a small baby, so we would always have him sleeping with us in our bedroom, in the bassinet or sleeping on the bed or whatever with us, you know, so we could keep a good watchful eye over him. Well, we had his room already set up with all his baby stuff, you know, crib and everything. And we were just waiting for him to get old enough so he could start sleeping in his own crib, you know, or in his own room. And so one night, you know, I was talking to my girlfriend and I says, well, what do you think? Do you think Brandon's old enough to sleep in his own room? And she's all, yeah, I think it's about that time. She's all, but let's give it one more night. Let him sleep with us one more night, you know. And I thought, all right, you know, that sounds good, you know. So we went to sleep that night. Well, about 3 o'clock in the morning, I was woken up, and this is probably on the weekend or something. 3 o'clock in the morning, I was woken up by a big loud bang. It almost sounded like a semi-truck was turning the corner outside and it just fell over on its side or tipped over or something. It was pretty loud, like shook the house. It was a big old loud sound. And I was like, what the hell? So I got up out of bed to go check it out. And I went out to the living room and there was just like dust all over the place. And I was like, what? You know, it's almost like a foggy haze, and I was just creeping through the house real slow, and I heard like some talking or something like that. So, but you know what, guys, just stick around, you know. Go ahead and hit the subscribe link down below because I got more content coming, okay? I'm gonna cut this one off right here and we're gonna come back with the next one. See you later.